It's like multiple choice for chairs. Welcome, everybody. I have the privilege of moderating a great discussion with some of the, I would say, some of the premier folks in our innovation ecosystem here in Indiana from an industry perspective, certainly, and all good, I would say good friends. Hopefully they would agree. I'd like to just ask this question to all of you. We all work in the life sciences, and usually there's something that attracts you to that world, right? Maybe a personal story. And I'd just love to hear from each of you, what drew you into the life sciences?
Well, I think it went way back. I was a summer intern for the Indiana State Board of Health as an undergrad, and had to work on some public health policy issues. And Woody Myers was the state health commissioner back then. He was a very inspiring individual. And I think that sort of sparked my interest. I thought I was pre-med at the time and was exploring other routes to get myself. Then I got an internship in graduate school with Lilly and set off a 16-year career in Lilly.
Thanks for sharing.
Mike did not preview this question because I do not have a very compelling story. So I had a 25-year law practice before joining Marketable Health. So to be frank, I was doing a graduate degree at the same time I needed a job as a lawyer, and the firm that I first met up with said, "Hey, we've just started a healthcare and life sciences practice. We need an associate in that space." And I said, "I've always wanted to be a healthcare and 25, now 30 years later, I've never left the industry, but it's been an amazing space to work in, which has been a lot of fun."
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, this wasn't on our question. Yeah, so for me, actually, I don't know who else is in the room, but a long time ago we started a company. Originally it was called ComChem Technologies. It was the first PI3 kinase inhibitor company in the field of 50. But that was my first biotech company, and it turned into a company called Semaphore. But before that, I had launched and started a bunch of tech companies and raised capital for them. And so in the late 90s, I was kind of falling on the log raising capital for tech companies. So when a buddy of mine said, hey, there's this guy at Indiana University, he's got this idea of, might help cure cancer, kind of a broad statement like that. Of course, can you help raise capital? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. And so started with the team there and really got to understand and listen to neuroscience for the first time. I'm not a scientist by training, and realized actually how hard it is. Everybody that I raised capital from in the tech world, a couple $100 million to zero. None of them transferred over into biotech. And understanding, all of my revenue projections didn't seem to hold much water with the biotech investor community. And so it was actually very, very hard. But honestly, it was the people. So getting to interact with scientists that were really committed to purpose and biology that wasn't going to play out for many, many years, but still didn't cause them to waver. I think, not that if there's anybody in the tech community, it's not that there's not ethics in tech, but it's just not the same. And so, and then the whole people, so I invested heavily. I didn't want to not be successful there, so I invested heavily in understanding the science and the field, and actually ended up got so into the regulatory sciences. I led regulatory clinical affairs for that first drug into the clinic, so first PI3 kinase inhibitor, and wrote most of the IND for that product, except for the people who filed it for that company might be here soon. Remember how horrible it was at that, but that's where I fell in love, and that's where I say I got addicted to drugs. I'm only focusing on drug companies.
That's awesome. I think that's where we get most people who write INDs, right, from the tech world?
Yeah, usually business people with, really even limited tech experience. Yeah, that's usually where. No, I would never hire me.
That's awesome. Thank you all for sharing that. Okay, so the second question, now that we know a little bit about like why life sciences, you could have, in particular, Diana and Derek, you guys could have started a business anywhere. Why Indiana? What was it about Indiana? What was the substrate? Was it, sometimes people talk about talent or, whatever it might be. What was it for you that led you to do what you're doing in Indiana?
Well, I'm a Hoosier. I grew up in Indiana, and the first startup that I had the privilege of starting, Pearl Capital, there's folks here from that company. I was already here and had started a company. But to be fair, I did go shopping for IP, not quite coast to coast, but kind of Northeast and Midwest after selling my part of that company, and was looking for IP. And there's something about the Midwest and what we do, and I'm very passionate about the flyover state that I'm so tired of hearing about, and we all hear about. And I did want to build something here. And it was fortuitous. I went up for an event at Purdue, and a lot of old bosses that I work with at Lilly were there, and I was telling them I was kind of shocked and I wanted to do a product company next. And they said, well, she's come right up and work with our entrepreneurs. So they asked me to be an entrepreneur myself. So it became harder to go shopping for IP elsewhere because I was getting interest in the community. So that's where I met my co-founder and the inventor of our technology, Dr. Joe Bates.
Yeah, so for me, actually, also grew up a Hoosier, went to Purdue, Franklin College, studied abroad for a bit too, but pretty much always lived in Indiana. And then that first company I mentioned was an Indianapolis-based company, which also was really hard to raise capital. This was also kind of 2002, 2003, as Alan and some other Lilly people might know. That was when Gus retired. That's when Richard DeMarchi kind of peeled off. That's when repairs. Lots of very really great scientists peeled off into the community, and a couple of people, even Jim Cornelius was leaving too, and Jim's the guy. They formed a group called Twilight Investments, and one thing they learned is apparently when you're trying to raise capital for a long-term venture capital fund, don't call it Twilight. That was one of their lessons. But they had their own capital. They raised money. They were successful people. But that kind of really, we had this gravity where Gus was allowing us to bring in investors that we couldn't get before he got involved with our company, and Richard was on too. But it was still very hard, and ultimately we moved the company, I think, to Arizona by 2006. But and then every other company since then. So then I was up in Evanston starting a company, New York, San Diego, and then community to San Francisco. We started another company here called Civic Biosciences, initially out of IU Technology, out of Zlotnick, Richard DeMarchi, and but we had, because of the kind of infectious disease research talent that we needed, we raised a lot of capital for that money quickly, so we had to build quickly. So that took us out to the Gilead area in South San Francisco, and so on. We were able to recruit, even though our headquarters was officially in Indianapolis. But I'd say the first time, essentially when I met Alan and Anantha Shaker and what happened was going on here for IBRI and really this kind of new gravity where it felt like, I was on the board at my Crossroads before that too. We were still missing Gus, John was getting plugged back in, and so on too. So that energy, I think, has created a lot more gravity. Now it's evident just by hanging out here and just how cool it is to be able to do kind of community events here. But more than that, it is talent. I do think there's scientific and leadership talent here. Like Diana just said, the fact that she stayed here to start companies. Now, since 2017, we've launched 5 companies that are all here on campus. The 2 main ones that I run are also based here at IBRI. And for me, I think, it's still an ongoing experiment, but we've been able to, raise $50–60 million the past couple of years. And it's hard to raise capital still, but it's hard to raise capital everywhere right now. So, it feels like we've kind of crossed over into at least kind of early critical mass of all those pieces to kind of service these initial things that we're doing right now, and then just hopefully we kind of keep building and kind of snowball to for recruiting non-Hoosiers, to Indiana.
Just a quick comment on talent. I mean, I think the corridor we're creating from here, literally here, this epicenter, up through Lebanon now to West Lafayette, and then of course the better road going down to Bloomington, of course. I think it's very powerful. We went extra for our last synthetic chemist hire, and we were recruiting all over the country, and we were really plugging this corridor, particularly for trailing spouses and elsewhere. And then I will say that we are fortunate enough that 2 of our other PhDs are trailing spouses of Purdue University professors. We're in West Lafayette, sorry, I should have said that, we're actually in West Lafayette. But 2 of my 8 employees live in Indianapolis, or 3 of 8, I guess we count. 3 of 8 of us live in Indianapolis and 5 are up in West Lafayette. Our lab is not there. So I do think that this commute is nothing for Northeast. It's like an hour on going down to Bloomington now or up to West Lafayette is such an easy commute. Whereas in Boston, forever and go 2 miles, it's just ridiculous. So I do think that the talent and the ability for us to recruit talent here and keep talent here is important to me. And of course, my scientists I talked to started yesterday, they pay almost 2x for chemists, biologists, et cetera, than we do here. So we have an advantage there as well.
For sure. So I'll raise my hand and say I'm not a Hoosier. I grew up in Florida. I was brought up here the first time, Lily. Left, did some startup work, ended up coming back. So we boomeranged here at least once. And I agree. I think, one of the reasons that we chose to put a headquarters here and build a team here with the startup that I was working on because of the difference in the cost of operating a business. So I think you're spot on, and I think it's a great place to raise a family and good cost of living. Now, Richard, I know you didn't start Parkview Health, but what are you a Hoosier? I should know this.
Yeah, I am a Hoosier. So, my trajectory was grew up in Northeast Indiana, 20 years in Research Triangle Park in North Carolina. Came back about 10 years ago. That was largely a little bit tied to family needs, a little bit tied to kids. Moved back to Northeast Indiana, although I was actually working out of Chicago, and partly because the firm needed to support rebuilding the Chicago healthcare practice. So those are kind of the 3 things that kind of coalesced about 10 years ago to come back. But I actually snuck back, living in Northeast Indiana. This is pre-COVID, so cameras weren't on. I could be, on the phone. It looked like I was in Chicago most of the day. And I flew out every week in terms of the client base, and it's hard to. I will tell you, it's hard to beat Portland Airport. I mean, it's like parking at a Walmart, and particularly at that point. I mean, it was me and 20 Zimmer Biomet reps, basically. But we were, we still are direct to a lot of key places. So you could go direct almost anywhere on the East Coast, all the way down through Dallas and Houston. So quality of life as a dad, and getting in and out to a lot of places.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking, crazy. This may sound crazy, absolutely insane. I remember living in San Diego and we came back here for something, and we were like, "What are we doing in San Diego? This feels like home, and it's much greener here, actually, believe it or not, in San Diego." Anyway, that's an aside. I want to transition to something that you all have sort of started to touch on, which is partnerships, and I want to start with you, Richard. I believe partnerships with startups is important to Parkview. We were just at an event earlier this week, and so I believe that to be the case. Talk to me a little bit about why they're important for you guys and what you look for in key startups to partner with, and what do you consider successful? What does success look like from your perspective and Parkview's perspective?
Yeah, well, and many of you know Mike Miro, so, and Mike is still very much around, although he's probably on a golf course in Arizona at the moment. So, I'm very much the heir to, what Mike has built at the Miro Center, which really is what started it for Parkview. Mike, along with all the senior leaders at Parkview, really almost, that building's been in existence for 10 years, but really going back 15 years, had a vision that Parkview would have the highest quality, safety, and innovation of any health system in the state, and certainly even in the region. And Parkview remains a little bit under the radar, but we're very fortunate. More than 100 clinical trials. We have destination patients coming in, particularly in cancer oncology, and So that program really built an infrastructure around our vision for then partnering startups. We have an innovation program within that building, an advanced simulation lab that's very, very popular. And a very strong program was built for folks in the venture space where we could really help accelerate their success. And it's actually much more practical things, quite frankly. It's like meeting with the head of supply chain to know how the packaging is going to work better, which is probably going to drive, you know, an actual decision, and probably a real decision maker. Meeting with people who can tell you pricing strategies and how else you think about pricing. You know, I often tell them, hey, here's the point at which the legal team's going to look at it versus, you know, sneaking it in under supply chain. So we saw a real opportunity to work with those companies, and Mike had built this tremendous infrastructure around that. Health informatics, huge health informatics, and so a lot of what we do as well is validate outcome improvement through the particular, and we tend to be med tech, med device, probably heavy in the startup space. So all of that kind of comes together where we began to believe that we had this tremendous pipeline of people who wanted to come work at the Miro Center. We had an ability to see what was really resonating with our clinical leaders about what could really drive the practice of medicine and make it better, improve outcomes, improve quality, and that if we took an investment interest in those companies, that we could really put a thumb, because our thesis is not to just be a venture fund where we're going to invest in a bunch of stuff and hope, you know, one of the 20 balls hits. Our thesis is really it is a venture investment, but we're gonna believe and we're gonna invest in the company, make it better, put value into the company, and then put a thumb on the scale in terms of, quite frankly, the sales cycle. And you know, I know Kristen's here. Like, I emailed Kyle yesterday. Hey, one of our companies that we have an investment in, I know came up to see you this week. Let me know if it's helpful to talk about it. And you know, we're pretty disciplined about telling you gotta win those pitches on your own, but certainly if they want to see it in action at our site, we host a lot of other health systems who want to see a product live in play. So
That's remarkable, thank you. And for those who haven't ventured up to see the facilities at Parkview, it's incredible. I mean, I spent a good part of my career in the acute care hospital space. I've never seen a community system like that. And to your point, like the facility and the labs that you have and everything, just amazing, absolutely amazing in what you guys do with your partners. Let's flip it and talk to Diana and Derek a little bit. What about for you, partnerships? Like, talk to me about what partnerships have been key, or what's been important. Have there been some that have been really meaningful for you in your businesses?
Okay. Well, we are we're a diagnostic startup, and from the very beginning, when I was first doing customer discovery to make the decision to join forces with Joe and take helm, IU has been there with us. So the head of gastroenterology, Dr. Al Haddad, has been there since the beginning, from customer discovery to now has been doing prospective clinical trials with us, and as part of our clinical utility study that we're enrolling in right now. So IU has certainly been a strong clinical partnership. They also have one of the world's largest bank of pancreatic cancer and benign tissue, cyst fluid, et cetera, under Max Schmidt's lab. Max has been a fantastic partner for us as well. And we're Purdue spin out with a very strong tie to IU, and both Purdue Ventures as well as IU Ventures have joined a couple rounds with us. So we're very well connected there. In addition, we've got ongoing collaboration with data scientists, AI folks up at Purdue, and of course do ongoing collaboration with Davidson Lab. And it also allows us to play above our weight. Like, we have access as visiting scholars for my PhDs, we can access mass spec, and we have that here in IBRI as well, but it's nice because we decided to be a little closer to there in the very early days, and so we're up in West Lafayette. And so it allows us to have access to equipment and the experts, et cetera. So we have strong partnership, and have enjoyed also the innovation voucher grants, giving a plug for that if ARI is here, but I wish the cap would be lifted on those because we'd like to continue to use those, but that matching mechanism has been also very motivating to keep us away from Ohio State and to be we're also working with Ohio State and Stanford and UCSF, and we're working with institutions all over the place, but the partnerships here are really special and strong.
Yeah, and you mean kind of like partnerships in the area versus just kind of like,
Well, in the area is fine, but if there's a good example outside the area, that's fine too.
well, yeah, I mean, we can't survive as like, semi-virtual biotechs without massive collaboration all over, everywhere, on every project I think too, so. But, I think, just hearing what you guys are saying about Parkview, I adore Mike, I've never been up there actually. And so now I want to go up and look at more about Parkview, because I haven't interacted up there, and so I'd love to do that sometime. And because I would say the IU Health collaboration that we've had with particularly a company we're working on right now called Monument Biosciences, and the Stark Neuroscience Research Institute. But historically, it's been everything from preclinical CROs. It's not even here anymore. The Took building used to be actually Circa, and animal facility, and we were doing non-clinical pharmacology studies, and it was at the time that we were that study in particular was funded by a 21st Century grant from Indiana. So I think, and that was a time when they were doing way different grant process, because it was a $2.5 million 21st Century grant that was set for IND directed work, right? And we didn't have to use an Indiana company for that, but we did. We were able to run the ton of studies right there at that facility. We ended up finding several different assay development, bioanalytical systems, BASI, right out of West Lafayette, and we always tried to work locally because it was easier, and we had a team here like Jessica, Dave Leander. We were able to kind of get some things done with local groups. I'd say Ron Bauscher's group down to at Franklin helped us develop some assays for one of our other companies that we launched with a non-venom shaker called Antigen. And so just always, and I'd say one thing I love about working with people in Indiana, as long as we can afford it, is relative to international contracts. Sometimes they're just too cheap to pass up. It's not always so much the case anymore, but as long as we can, it just that community interaction, and I would say in level, kind of like surprising level of sophistication too, because typically they were ex-Lilly or ex-Dow or ex-Roche, or really sophisticated industry sorts that just help us make progress. So I mean, I have so many examples. I'm not even sure where to kind of go to, but I'd say the culture of being able to collaborate here with almost everything. I was told at one point, I don't even know if this is true anymore, I was told at one point, maybe mentioned this, that apparently, I don't even know if this is even a regulatory thing, if you could do every part of drug development, or maybe I don't know this, in one state, apparently there's some sort of loophole legislation that allows you to get drugs approved much more efficiently. But as soon as you cross any step into other state lines, is that a thing anymore? Oh, yeah. That was a thing at one point, but and then because somebody told us that, and then it was the company kind of flexing how many, and it was somebody who helped facilitate partnerships for different drug discovery activities.
Sounds like something California would do.
I was going to say, what's Indiana
should do that.
And they basically said every part could, basically, if we really wanted to, you could do everything here in Indiana.
Interesting. I just got a text telling me that nobody from the audience has submitted any questions.
We just got a couple, actually.
Oh, we did get a couple.
Of course, I sent you that.
Of course, as soon as you do it, right?
Yeah.
Do you have them?
Yep, I do. I've got a couple questions. So I'll ask this first one here. What common mistakes do you see founders making when they're trying to scale quickly?
Run out of money.
So the balance of, hiring ahead so you can meet your milestones, and managing, as you grow, things get more complicated, is a tough balance. And I think a lot of folks can get ahead of their skis easily, both on what they're trying to do and with whom they're trying to do it. So you do have to to make sure it's the right team players. The other thing is you add more people, you sometimes compromise a bit on maybe those first initial hires that are core and are aligned to the culture and what you really need. So, I think right now we're in a realistic environment that many of us aren't able to raise as much as we'd like. So every hire counts, and we have to be more judicious and careful. And so I think it's a balancing act, right?
Well, so I'd say every company that I've been part of, except for maybe the first one I was CEO of, Marketable, I got out ahead of my skis. And we grew too fast, and we were able to raise a lot of capital. You hire certain things, markets change, and then you have to change, you have to adapt. And so I have lots of examples to pull from, unfortunately, on that question. So if there's a specific follow-up question on exactly what I do, I can give examples of what, I think you just have to be really careful about the personnel that you bring in, and to me, people are always first in those types of decisions, and making sure we do right by them, while also leading into what can progress to be able to raise more capital. Maybe it really is just a reduction in force for a little bit, and then we scale back up. We've done that at a couple of companies too. But I would say, the markets are so hard. We're always, since we're not making any money in biotech by selling products, and it's not like a push harder on sales or get more emphasis on marketing. I mean, we don't have that. It is to a certain degree because we're selling to investors, but I think it is, just a little bit more challenging sometimes to predict that. But just try to always roll with the punches and leverage that into the next. Assuming you believe in your product and your science, you bring that into the next story for bringing in more capital, and then maybe being a little bit more careful next time.
It looks like Nets has a question.
Rich, maybe you could share a little bit more about Parkview.
The chest just turned on.
I'll get one of these in the office too. Talk about the kind of the innovation challenges that you all do up there, because that's probably not on people's radar.
Yeah.
And then also the partnership you just had this past week with Enterprise Ireland. I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, and I think as I was thinking about the answer to this question, in some ways, why the Enterprise Ireland companies have done so well in our innovation competition is really an answer to this question. So we for a number of years hosted an innovation competition. We typically align that around state health quality goals, so that's been a lot around maternal and baby health, as that's been a big issue in the state, obviously, over the last 5 years. Interestingly, Enterprise Ireland, which is sort of the government-funded accelerator for entrepreneurs in Ireland, found us. I still don't know if we know exactly how they found us, but they started coming to our competition. They started winning really regularly. So the event that just occurred is actually they brought their entire group of life sciences and med tech and anybody really within the healthcare space, group of founders over for it's obviously at St. Patrick's, so they leveraged the joy of doing that. So, I don't know if you saw the journal article this morning. They were giving the guy grief about how did the Irish Prime Minister get America to celebrate their country once a year. But so they brought 15 founders to an event, and each did a basically 5-minute presentation to all of our senior clinical leaders. What has distinguished them in winning the competition, we get a lot of great products that we know actually could make clinical improvements. It is where folks like me start to lean in on what infrastructure is there as a company that can really move quickly, how thoughtful are they about reimbursement path, and what's the value proposition other than just it's a great product, because we live in a world where we can't just continue to buy, and if it doesn't have a separate reimbursement pathway, then that's a very expensive decision for us. So it's got to really have a compelling clinical case. But so it's a lot about is the founder still doing every sale, or is there beginning to be infrastructure there? We obviously spend a lot of time on exactly where they're at in their FDA journey. Now, as you know, they all want to come here for two reasons. Obviously, Ireland's about the size of Indiana, so that's not a great TAM. So you got to get into a bigger market. It actually is easier to get through the FDA than the EU regulatory process. So a lot of it is, how sophisticated are they about getting to a finish line, sales cycle, reimbursement, and value prop, which I think is all kind of the rest, because founders can get so focused on the product that they don't think about the company. Would be just my opinions.
Super helpful. I'm going to look at Amanda, and I think what always happens.
We are right on time.
I was going to say, we have less time than interest in talking some more. But help me thank our panelists. I really I'm going to turn it over to Vince, whose mic is already working.
Thank you.
Our CEO.
Ready? Yeah. Actually, I'm going to stand because there's not enough chairs. I'm going to fire hazard up here. But I'm Vince Wong. With Wild Crossroads. Just had my year anniversary. And so pleased to be with you all. I've got a stellar group of leaders from several different organizations that I'll call up. First is from my alma mater, Notre Dame, Dr. Paul Bone, who's the inaugural director of the Notre Dame Bioengineering and Life Sciences Initiative, BELLS, as they call it. So welcome, Paul. Thanks for coming down from God's country. Dr. James Lin, who's the new executive director of the Seabody Institute, which is the Convergent Bioscience and Technology Institute, who recently came to Indianapolis from Cincinnati. So we don't have this good chili, but we've got maybe better basketball. We actually have a pro basketball team in Cincinnati, so, or here in Indianapolis. Dr. David Euless, who's the senior vice president, provost, screw that up, didn't I? Purdue in Indianapolis. So David, thanks for joining us. And then Dr. Alan Pakovich, thank you, who's the president and CEO of IDRI, Indiana Bioscience Research Institute. And last but not least is David Rosenberg, who's the newly appointed president and CEO of IU Lab, and most recently the Secretary of Commerce for the state of Indiana, and leader of IUC, so thank you. So big panel, but a lot of, I think represents just so much exciting, interesting, dynamic things going on in the state. I will start with David. IU Lab is probably the shiniest penny in the life science ecosystem that's emerged, so congratulations on that announcement and launch. Maybe give a little primer on what IU Lab is and the vision for that, and in the vein of partnerships, like what partnerships were critical to make that happen, and then what partnerships do you see being critical for ultimate success for IU Lab?
Absolutely, yeah. Vince, thanks for having us, Bio Crossroads team. Thank you all for being here. It's great to see so many friends and partners in the room. There's probably about 25% of you that can give this spiel that we've been around the state giving the last few months. David Rosenberg, been at IU for 2 months and 2 days, the inaugural president of the IU Lab. The lab is really something bigger and bolder than IU has really done historically. And there's two intentions for why, under President Wind and the board, they launched this lab. One is to be that front door for academia, researchers, and industry to meet, to find that next discovery, start the next innovation, and commercialize the next product. And then the second piece is how do we train the life science leaders and entrepreneurs of the future? And we plan to do that all in one building here at 16 Tech, which will be right across the parking lot. We received a $138 million grant from the Lilly Endowment for design and construction. IU Research has committed another $36 million for equipment and funding. IU Health is in for about $12 million for different pieces of the programming, and we're currently working with other industry and federal partners on the funding side of things. So what the lab will really entail is everything from true classroom academic space. So Luddy's new masters of biomedical engineering and informatics will be housed in the lab. We're also working with the Kelley School of Business and some of their biotech master's programs in here with Exec Ed. We'll have teaching and training labs, both wet and dry labs. We're going to have an incubator with a pre-accelerator and accelerator within the building for that startup ecosystem. And then we're going to have industry-sponsored studios within the lab, again, to drive those partnerships and really facilitate that discussion. So we're trying to really, again, look at how can we take the best of what IU does in terms of the research, getting the grants, doing the research, partner them with startups and industry, and really commercialize that next big product. There's been several partners at the table, including IBRI, 16 Tech, CICP, IU Health. Regan Street has been a great partner as well. We're starting to make those inroads into industry now and have those connections. And so we're really at the ground level. We met with the architect, we have an architect on board now, met with him today for a half-day session, so it truly is at the ground level where we're drawing things on paper. But it's a really exciting initiative, again, and it won't just be an IU building, and it's not just going to be an academic building. It truly is intended to be an industry-focused building where we are asking our corporate partners, where do you want to be in 20 or 30 years, and how can the expertise of IU help you get there? And I can say this and extend the olive branch, but we'll even allow Purdue to come in. You got startups, entrepreneurs. You got startups, entrepreneurs. Everybody's in because we're really trying to discover what that next big thing in life sciences is.
Great. Well, thank you, Dave, for that great overview. Alan, I mean, IBRI has been a model of collaboration. Maybe give a brief vignette on how IBRI came together, what partners kind of formed IBRI, and then you've done an amazing job of also diversifying your revenue sources, which is so critical these days, and through partnerships. So maybe elaborate a little bit about the genesis of IBRI from a partnership perspective and how you're leveraging partnerships to fuel the growth of IBRI.
Sure. Thanks, Vincent. Good to see everyone. So the IBRI has been around for about 10 years. And it was really came together as a vision from state government, the Lilly Endowment, corporate leadership, university leadership, as a concept of having an institute that would sit between academic research and the private sector. Really a missing piece that was viewed as critical in terms of the evolving life science community, economy, ecosystem, even 10 years ago. I think that vision has remained very, very much real and really something to really address. And so through the course of the evolution of the IBRI, we've been working to really find our niche within that continuum, really being a catalyst to really engage primary research, basic science, in the life sciences, in disease science, and really chart a path to be able to move the exciting opportunities towards a path to patients and potential value creation that would be engaged and adopted by the private sector. So that's been sort of our overall strategy. So, key to that is understanding, what it is that the IBRI can provide in terms of what we're about. We decided a few years ago to have some areas of disease focus that would allow us to engage researchers working in different areas, such as pediatric rare diseases, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes and metabolism, and some other areas we're beginning to explore on the periphery, but also the capabilities. We really needed to have capabilities here that were very difficult to find in academia or very hard to access in the industry environment. So we are really a drug discovery engine. Many of us come from industry. We built the capabilities to create molecules, to interrogate disease science, to advance ideas to the point where we may have promising IP in the form of molecular therapeutics and molecular diagnostics that would really have a path towards creation of companies, and in addition to creating downstream value. Now, we don't do that alone. We do that through engaging interested parties. We engage academic researchers, which we have many partnerships now. We engage private companies who look to the IBRI as a source of capability that they don't have to go and create in order to be able to move their concept forward. We have work organically coming out of the IBRI that's forming de novo concepts that are moving into company formation, which is very exciting. And the other thing we do within the community is open up our facilities as an incubator. We have 18 companies here now at the IBRI who are able to leverage our space, our infrastructure, and in some cases actually partner directly with us. So that continuum of partnership is really key. And we're not just looking at doing this within Indiana. We have a global vision. So we have a number of collaborations that extend beyond the state and actually into Europe as well. And we hope to see that as a way to bring the world closer to Indiana in pursuing innovative ideas that can really transform patient care, but also contribute to the growth of the economy.
So maybe it'd be GBRI in the future, a Global Bioscience Research Institute.
I think Derek would like that. I think that's definitely.
Great stuff, Alan. Thank you. Paul, the Bell's institution is really predicated around, I think, the thesis of the collisions between cross-disciplinary efforts across engineering and science. So love to allow you to kind of double click on that and talk about what is the underlying thesis behind that new institute and where are you with regard to standing that up?
Yeah, thanks very much, Vince. Great to be here with all of you. For those who don't know, Notre Dame and South Bend are located in the state of Indiana. I just want to remind my colleagues at Purdue and IU. No, and looking around, as a private institution, of course, we have a different set of hills and valleys than our colleagues at IU and Purdue. And one of the things that was a very real question in the last 5 years is, as Notre Dame looked to its near and intermediate term future, what kinds of inter-science and cross-disciplinary activities were going to be important, not only in driving science forward on our campus, but also in opening up Notre Dame to partnerships beyond our campus walls within the state of Indiana and also broadly, globally even. And so Bell's Bioengineering and Life Sciences Initiative is, I'll call it an umbrella organization just to simplify it. And we stand for the success of all of the life science and bioengineering oriented institutes and centers, as well as the individual faculty involved in them on campus. And so those include things like the Harper Cancer Research Institute, the Warren Center for Drug Discovery, and I won't go on and name them all, but you get the idea that there are a lot of people who were already heavily invested in the research and development enterprise focused around life sciences. And we asked the question, as an institution, what would happen if we made it easier to cross from science to engineering and back? And would it be advantageous to create teams where one could integrate expertise across disciplinary lines? So when we created Bell's, we really had 3 things in mind that we would hope would make us distinctive. Number one, we're mission oriented. We have a specific, unique mission at the University of Notre Dame that's distinct from most of the missions that our public colleagues have. Number 2, we're very focused on this cross-disciplinary research aspect. And then number 3, you may have noticed we don't have a medical school. And I'm asked, so I'll just go ahead and bury the lead. I'm asked every time I get up and speak, well, you don't have a medical school, what are you going to be able to do in bioengineering and life sciences? And in point of fact, not having a medical school makes us independent of the kind of structures and constraints that researchers at medical schools normally have to operate under. I'll give you a really quick example. I have a group of really talented colleagues at Notre Dame who asked the question, would it be possible to do a better job, cheaper, faster, and more effective of developing CAR T-cell therapies by doing them in microgravity? Now that sounds crazy. Who wants to send CAR T-cells into space in order to work with it?
Especially not space cells.
Exactly. Well, that's the kind of question that's possible to ask in a Bell's that might be more constrained than a traditional medical school. So we're just getting started. We began at about the same time Vince took over at BioCrossroads, and we've been really enjoying the road so far.
That's great. And you've got a new building that you're moving into or have moved into?
Just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we moved into what we're calling McCourtney 2. Pursuant to a gift from Ted and Tracy McCourtney. And it forms part of a roughly 300,000 square foot complex devoted to bioscience and engineering on the northeast side of our campus.
Thank you, Paul. David, from a Purdue Indianapolis perspective, exciting announcement of the 15-story student success center you're building. Talk to us about your vision with regard to how, where is Purdue Indianapolis going to be in 5 years? If you can project forward based on yours and President Chang's vision.
Yeah, thank you very much, and it's great to be here with such great colleagues. In bio, my former role was the head of the Development School of Biomedical Engineering at Purdue University in West Lafayette. And this is part of how I got here. This is a vibrant ecosystem in Indianapolis that we're here. We're now 9 months in to our very first year of being present here as an expansion of the West Lafayette Purdue University. So one university, 2 locations, and that's a different model that we're approaching here. So we're focused in Indianapolis on research excellence, on workforce development with a heavy focus on world readiness, on entrepreneurship from the first day the students walk in the classroom, and also on being a very good neighbor and a very good partner. You know, I really, my mission in biomedical engineering, my mission now as chief academic in Indianapolis, is to make Indianapolis and Indiana something that you don't overlook when you're looking for big national competitions like Jen Zuckerberg, other types of initiatives. So we can compete against UCSF and Berkeley. We can go up toe-to-toe against the East Coast and the West Coast. And it's great to have partners that are thinking along those lines as well to develop this overall ecosystem. So what does it mean to be an expansion of the West Lafayette campus, and what does that look like? It's a little, I went to the University of Michigan as an undergrad. There was North Campus and a Central Campus, and it was about a 15-minute bus ride. Here it's about an hour and 10 minutes, which after spending some time in LA and recently and other things, is nothing. And it takes about that long for me to get to Fishers or Westfield. And so we have 8 round-trip buses a day between the locations. That every 2 hours, there is a bus departing from both locations to connect the campuses. 55, you can work on them, full Wi-Fi and everything. And what this does is it really shrinks Indianapolis and West Lafayette into a much closer, tighter-knit type of environment community. So 30,000 rides so far since launch, and we've almost doubled the ridership this semester than the fall semester. By this time next year, we'll have traveled the round-trip distance to the moon, but we've already circumnavigated the world several times with that route. So what does that mean in terms of bringing the entrepreneurship and commercialization culture with us? I mean, Purdue University is now 4 years in the top 5 for patents offered. We're behind Caltech, the University of California system, the Texas system, and MIT, but we're ahead of Stanford, Harvard, we're ahead of the University of Michigan. You can try to root for them a little bit here. And so Purdue Innovates and PRF, Purdue Research Foundation, are an integral part of what we're doing and building here in Indianapolis. And so that is a commercialization partner, a research partner for bringing discovery into translation, and it's done at scale. Last year there were over 290 patents filed. There are 260 working business days in a typical year. So more than a patent a day is being produced from this. Over 140 patents were turned into licenses. Over $130 million was granted from royalties from last fiscal year. And from the breakdown, the biomedical engineering and biotech, there's over 100 patents there, over 50 companies spun off. Pacemakers, technology and CT scanners, wearable devices, sensors, as well as implantable devices are all IP and things that have been generated, saving lives now. And we really, really want to reinforce this vision in Indianapolis with our partners at IU, strong partnerships with IU School of Medicine, IU. I personally have a research lab that's had partnerships with IU and Notre Dame now for a very long time. And so there's a lot of focus on mutual reinforcement and making this an awesome place for all parties that are present.
Thanks, David. And I love your allusion to the Chance Zuckerberg, because that was really the collaboration with Northwestern and Chicago, right? And
we put one in, Purdue and IU and others put one in, and then it went up there. It was a similar topic area, but those are the things that we can go after together.
Absolutely. And I think that orientation that Purdue has had around translation and IP generation and industry partnerships is, I love where IU is kind of seeing that vision as well, and I think IU Labs is a representation of that, and then bringing folks like you, Dr. Lynn, James, and around with your phenotype, having a startup founder and having that commercial orientation as well. So maybe share a little bit about CBADI and then also your startup and then your vision for what CBADI could be for our ecosystem.
Sure, thanks. Hello everyone, my name is James Lin, and I'm a new executive director of the Convergent Bioscience and Technology Institute. I was told finally probably the leadership is tired of instead of starting with the I. So I was the first one, starting with the C. So my institute is SPADI, and we actually position SPADI as a new enabling technology powerhouse to support the 4 pillars in sensing technology, new implantable, molecular assessment to leverage our strengths from Lottie School. It's where the omics meets with the bioinformatics. And finally, working closely with our pharma partners to develop a smart drug delivery. So you can see with the 4 pillars, we create those intersections to develop our great talent. We just talked about how to bring in talents to Midwest or more for Indianapolis. We actually use that to craft our great talent recruitment plan. And I have been leading several joint hire. And I've noticed that with those new initiatives, we have created a very compelling story to attract even talents from Coast Hub. And we talk about more affordable living costs. We just interviewed a kind of a big time, specialized in wearable technology from Boston. He has a family of 7 kids, so certainly it's a great place for them to continue to grow family. And I guess I like to share a bit vision about the IU SPADI. Doing my undergrad in civil engineering, and I know one thing or two about bridge. So one of my primary mission is to bridge several things between academic and industry, science and the real world problems, and more impactfully is how we can bridge the fundamental discovery to the real market-driven innovation. So SPADI is a part of we call it a new health innovation cluster here at IU, working with IBRI, leading precision medicine, ICMH, again another I, Indiana Center for Musculoskeletal Health. They are leading an NSF-funded engine project to particularly grow our ortho industry here in the entire Indiana. And also, I'm also leading to explore new class of materials, so we can address the real problem from a more regenerative medicine. And as well as we have another institute called H2W, Human Health and Wellness. They are leading digital health. So together, this is a new cluster is happening. So the overarching aim is that we want to also utilize this new platform to promote translation research, to educate our next generation engineers, scientists. My primary mission is very simple, is to foster, to embrace this philosophy and foster convergence. So we can bring in all engineers, scientists, industry leaders, entrepreneurs all together in this place to translate the science to further transform our life. So that's a very brief, kind of mission statement for SPADI.
Thank you. You touched on this with regard to talent, and certainly it does start with people with regard to supporting the organic growth of existing companies, but also it being an attractor for new companies to come here. It is also the substrate for new company generation to start here. I guess, Alan, in your leadership, IBRI has really begun to really lean in on workforce development. Can you share with the group around some of the new programs, relatively new programs at IBRI's?
Sure. Thanks. So one thing that we focused on at IBRI is we're all talking about, it really starts with people, with the talent you're able to attract and how you put them in contact with each other, with the community, but also with the resources in order to pursue, challenging problems that really have potential to have big impact. And so, at one level, we focus quite a bit on our own employee development. So we're developing really a really beautiful legacy now since the beginning of IBRI of individuals that have come into the organization, that have grown with the organization. Some have stayed and we've helped develop their careers. Others have gone on to other companies in the community. Some have gone back to school to pursue advanced degrees. But one of our goals with our employees through direct employment is to provide this set of experiences and competencies that makes them highly, highly competitive in the emerging world when they want to go beyond the IBRI. We'd love for them to stay, and we want them to be potential employees that would join new companies that come out of the community or relocate here, as an example, in addition to advancing our mission. So we really see that as a fundamental part of our training. The one thing we've done recently, and it's really become more of a formal program this past year, is an intern program. And this is where we're bringing in college students largely. We have some high school students and some others that are in different stages of their career development to really come in and have a true experiential learning project, if you will, or experience overall here at the IBRI. So it's a 10-week program during the summer months. Individuals are brought in and made part of active ongoing teams. So whether they're part of a team working with academia, working with an industry partner, they really have a really incredible exposure to what it would be like to really work in a company down the road, or maybe it helps them fine-tune what they're thinking about in terms of their advanced education. Do they want to pursue career research, or they want to go to medical school? We really want to provide that foundation, and we develop a curriculum with many different seminars and sort of skills development that really enriches that experience so they're prepared. Ultimately, what we want to do is to find ways to retain individuals, recognize that they can be part of the community here if we're successful in creating new companies, so they, after they graduate, they want to stay in Indiana and develop their career here. So that's a key goal as well. But in addition to science, we also are bringing interns in for our administrative, our finance, our business development, our HR type of opportunities that we have here for employees, so they can learn those aspects that would really mimic what you might find in a biotech, which is pretty exciting. So it's very dynamic, and we're very proud of this program. Just to give you an idea of the numbers, and we have slots for 30 individuals, and this past year we had 540 applicants. So it's really tough to get in. We're trying to expand it, but we're really being able to select among the best students that really want to pursue this opportunity, and we hope to continue to build a very strong legacy.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. I had an opportunity to have a couple of students present at the end of last summer their work, and just blew us away, right? Just one was a high school student, the other was a college student, and quality of research they were doing was incredible. So, Paul, with regard, not to put you too much on the hot seat, but I mean, Notre Dame draws students more from outside the state than inside the state, so creates retention here in the state of Indiana a little bit more challenging because there's less of a tie to the state for these kids graduating from Notre Dame. But maybe talk about what efforts are underway, if at all, at the university to try to retain Notre Dame grads to get connected with employment opportunities here after they graduate. And maybe a two-part question would be, you got alums kind of scattered throughout the entire country. What opportunities might there be to tap into that alumni network to bring them back to collaborate with Notre Dame on campus or in the broader Indiana ecosystem?
Yeah, great question, Vince. I'm happy to, always happy to talk about Notre Dame students. I would say, when we started Bells, but certainly even before that, the big question or hurdle we had to address from our geographic location was just one of infrastructure and connection. And so we've talked, all of our colleagues here on the panel have talked about how important it is to be connected to various people and various organizations and the good kinds of things that come from collaboration. So one of the very first things that we had to do was we had to think about what kinds of connections can we make that are going to make a difference to our students as they go out into the larger world. And so early on, we created something called the Indiana Consortium for Analytical Science and Engineering. Chris Welch, our executive director, is actually here today. Hope we have a chance to speak to Chris after the panel. But the notion was to bring together students and faculty at IU, Notre Dame, and Purdue, focus on new kinds of research opportunities, new kinds of infrastructure building, and new kinds of educational programs that would allow us to basically move out of our university silos. And that has been enormously successful. We've created Been successful in attracting an industry university cooperative research center that involves 15 companies now, 3 universities, and it brings people into Indiana twice a year to see what we're doing. So that's one thing that's been enormously helpful. And not to belabor, but Purdue can't do everything. IU can't do everything, and Notre Dame certainly can't do everything. So it's important to have the opportunity to work across these faculty lines to create new research opportunities and to tackle problems that, frankly, none of the 3 universities by themselves could tackle. In fact, that's a common theme that I've heard from all the panelists. And then finally, to get to the last part of your question about Notre Dame's alumni network is tremendous. And it gives us both challenges and opportunities, Vince, as you certainly know. But with respect to Indiana, we draw people back to the state of Indiana because of the University of Notre Dame. And so we try to take advantage of that, both in thinking about where individuals have been in their own career trajectories, how they can weigh in or help Notre Dame. And so lots of times, private universities are great about inviting people back who qualify by having a lot of money. But in fact, we find it to be much more valuable to invite people back who have really great ideas and have been successful. And we've been very fortunate that our alumni have been gracious and very forthcoming in that.
David, with regard to Purdue Indianapolis, what was any thesis around connectivity between employers and students that are driving the expansion here in Indianapolis?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I mean, we produce a large number of STEM majors, graduates in engineering, computer science, and mathematics. And we're always looking to find ways to keep the people that Purdue draws in Indiana to contribute back to Indiana. It's roughly, we have a lot of students coming from out of state. And finding that the students that start internships and finding themselves advancing earlier and from those relationships earlier are those that choose to stay from wherever they come from. They graduate, they have offers other places, but they see themselves advancing earlier and having that community around them earlier. It just kind of thinks that they can get a head start, and they have that community. And that is one of the core drivers of the expansion in Indianapolis. We have so many students looking for these types of positions. There's not enough immediate local vicinity ecosystems to plug them into. And so you mentioned the academic success building that we're having a ribbon cutting April 2nd. It's kind of a hub and spoke model in the design of how we're weaving and marbling into the city for this very purpose, for this training of students in real world readiness and entrepreneurship, and in getting that culture from the businesses. So I consider it the hub and spoke model, where we already have degrees inside in program and training that's inside of companies. We have the motorsports program in Delaware, getting away from bio a little bit, but there's hearing research going on for driving performance. We work with High Health, with 16 Tech, the accessible audiology clinic, who you're hearing tested right now, and students are involved in those projects. And once you have them in those projects, contributing and seeing themselves advance, they're more likely to stay. And so what we're doing is we're having a campaign in West Lafayette to get students that are currently pursuing degrees to continue their degrees in Indianapolis while they're doing this in the community. So we're always looking for more partners. Also, being present in the city gives us housing that we can do for short durations in the summer for internships, and companies buy blocks of rooms for running bespoke internship programs for the training of students. We have 50 Lilly scholars right now living in Lux on Capitol who are doing full-on internships at a Lilly company. We're part of a Purdue 4-year program that mixes the company internship experience with their training. And so that is the value add. It's a value add for students and faculty and staff in West Lafayette. It's a value add for getting people into Indianapolis right at the beginning who choose to find those experiences and choose to stay in Indianapolis and get back year over year.
That's great. And David, I'll hit you and then we'll open up to questions. I don't know how we're doing with time, Amanda.
Yeah, we got about 10 more minutes.
All right. Get your questions ready. I'll open it up. David, with regard to IU Lab, how do you see IU Lab playing a role with regard to talent attraction and retention?
Yeah, no, I thought my colleague said it well. I mean, creating that stickiness, getting the students ingrained with companies, letting them see their career path early on is so important, especially those that come from out of state or even international. To keep them in Indiana, they have to see what their life can be, what their career path can be, the opportunities that they have. And so as part of the lab, like I said, we'll have true academic space in there, and that was very intentional to make sure that those students have we facilitate those creative collisions and those networking opportunities with startups, with industries, with other partners. So we are creating that stickiness. We also want to look with the Lilly Endowment and 16 Tech about the community and reaching out to the community, working with IU Health on credentialing and upskilling for folks in the community to get those higher paying jobs. Reaching out to high school and middle school, showing them opportunities in industries that they don't have access to today. How can we get a middle school or an IPS school engaged in life science or biotech? Bring them in through the lab, let them see Alan's labs that he has up here, which are fully state of the art. Get them interested in that regard so that they may have a different mindset than what they see on a day-to-day basis, so that they can really envision their future, create that stickiness, and we have a better chance to keep them in the state. And I will say it's been very cool to be on this panel because for those of you not close to universities, it's not just lip service. There is great collaboration. Coming from my previous job where we were selling the state, I mean, we would tout the university system and the access of the universities to those companies and the talent that come out of those. And so it's not just lip service. There is great collaboration. There's incredible work going on at all three universities. But I do have to say, there were only 2 of the 3 that were in the college football playoffs. So.
We have new coaches still, so we'll spring to turn on that's off the for sure. Let's open it for questions from the floor. Anyone?
I moved over here.
Yeah.
Sorry. First question, how do you balance scientific rigor with the need to move quickly in a commercial setting?
So question, trying to read the question back to you all. How do you balance scientific rigor with commercial?
The need to move quickly
Yeah.
in commercial settings.
The need to move quickly in commercial settings. Any perspectives? I can go ahead.
That's a great question, and it's obviously attention. But I think fundamentally, if you're going to be successful in the long term, paying attention to detail, putting together data packages that are robust and will stand up to diligence, that will address as many questions as you potentially can anticipate from investors is really critical. But I think part of that is also revealing gaps, and part of being able to recruit investment into an early stage project is really being able to get the funding to complete the story, complete the picture, discharge questions associated with risk. And so I think you have to be, at least our philosophy, our anything we bring forward, many of us have come from industry, we've been on the other side, and so we're really asking ourselves, what is the best quality that we can bring forward, recognizing you can't answer every question and you can't have everything 100% complete, but doing the best you can with what you have, but then also being very transparent about gaps to be addressed as you continue to advance an asset or a concept forward.
Yeah, I would draw upon my most recent experience at my prior company. To Alan's point, quality data is king. So our goal was to get a JAMA publication because that was going to be our calling card to get to KOLs, and so we got that. But we moved with speed through our clinical studies. We had 10,000 patient study, which is a large study. We enrolled that study in a year, leveraging digital technologies. And we said we were getting a very diverse cohort of patients by utilizing Facebook and Instagram for patient recruitment, and did all kind of virtual, it's a really virtual recruitment. And so we were do a 10,000 patient study at a third of the cost that Grail and Freenome and others, Exact Sciences did. So we did it faster and cheaper, but delivered robust clinical data that got us a JAMA publication. So I think, especially at startup, thinking scrappy around how do you leverage new technologies to maintain integrity, but do it in a faster, a smarter way. Any perspectives from James?
I was going to reiterate data is king. All the regulatory environment is around making sure that reproducibility and consistency of the results.
Okay.
Yeah, I can contribute this a bit insight. Vince mentioned, like I also moved my startup company Entrepreneurship to IBRI, and I think one thing that again we need to bridge the gap between the academia and industry. Many times is the exposure, or I would say more like the current AI language learning. Many times professor may develop a very rigorous science, but they don't really understand language about the regulatory, what would be the regulatory designation of their product. So they couldn't find the correct route at the very beginning, and they don't know how to explore the test bed to develop viable data to support their regular path. So and also at some point we talk about fundraising. Many times we don't know much about the language from the investor world, so they can really refine their vision to attract the investor to understand their value. So I think language learning is certainly a big part for the scientific world and to help pitch their very advanced science.
I think data is king, but also digital technologies can also help accelerate the data generation. So, any questions?
Yep. How can potential founders, specifically medtech founders, engage with your organizations?
How can the medtech founders engage with your organizations?
Yeah, just come see us. We are planning to launch the incubator this summer, and so we will be sourcing startup companies probably starting in April through a program partner that we'll announce here in the next 30 days or so. So come talk to us. We're happy to share more. But that programming will start this summer within the lab and the incubator for both the pre-accelerator and the accelerator programs.
Come talk to Brooke Baer if you want to get a hold of her. Let me know. She's the Associate Vice President of Purdue Innovates, biomedical engineering PhD alum in the program. We'll talk to Joey Wallace, Associate Vice President for Research, Purdue University, to get those connections moving immediately and get you in the pipeline.
Yes. So, with regard to medtech, a lot of what we focus on at the IBRI is molecular therapeutics, molecular diagnostics. Medtech is a bit, afield from what we do. However, we do get quite a number of inquiries from companies if they can leverage our facility, if there is a fit, and if there's something we can properly provide as a place to set up and get going, and if we can, make connections, we're very happy to engage.
I think from the Notre Dame perspective, I would just echo what my colleagues have said. We're open for business. I'm not immediately as recognizable as Marcus Freeman on campus, but I'm not that hard to find. Be happy to engage. And because we're a relatively young organization, some of this connective tissue is just now getting laid down. And we would be delighted to engage with medtech companies in helping us lay it down.
And then on behalf of Crossroads, you can see us as a front door too. We have obviously relationships with all these organizations. We can help triage based on our understanding of what you need and what institutions are focused on, so we can do a little bit of matchmaking as well. So happy to play that role as well. And then I know Parkview is always open for business as well. A lot of startups already work with Rich's organization up in Fort Wayne, so just a great place for medtech technology to ensure product market fit through their simulation lab.
And the last question is focused on AI. As AI is evolving, how are you utilizing that in your organizations or looking toward the future of thinking about what are we going to do?
Yeah, it's come up in every single industry conversation that we've had, and so I think it's bringing that multidisciplinary approach. There's already great partnerships in AI and life sciences going on within IU, but also when you look at Analytics IN and the partnership between IU, Purdue, and Notre Dame, with Eli Lilly, IU Health, and others that is already making those investments in AI and life sciences, we need to continue to build on that in a collaborative way, which I think everyone is committed to. But then also utilizing the Luddy School of Informatics, their expertise in AI, the Kelley School of Business, and what they're working on, plus the IU School of Medicine, really taking that multidisciplinary approach internal to IU, but leveraging the external partners as well will be absolutely critical to meet the needs of industry in that ever-changing world.
Yeah, I think there's a, is it on? Yes. There's a good opportunity for AI. I mean, we use it a lot in the lab. A lot of folks use it in the lab regularly to make things go faster, move faster. You can now do surrogate models for more fast simulations. And the thing that there's a concerted effort between Purdue, IU, and Notre Dame, and this NSF Institute I mentioned earlier that centers on measuring the same thing in different species to have a rigorous approach to combating eRoom's law, which is the inverse of Moore's law, which is the doubling of CPU speed every 18 months. eRoom's law is the pharmaceutical one that makes the next new advanced drug doubles in price, what, every 3 years or something? And then the big reason for that is the failure of preclinical models and the failure of toxicology models as you move up the chain from cells to animal models to human clinical trials. And a lot of it, if you had more data, you had more measurements in those systems, you could build a rigorous way to do translation. You can do much more rigorous approaches to bridge that gap and to revert and to slow down eRoom's law. And so some of these things is an interinstitutional thing, same thing, different species, measuring the same quantities to develop the rigorous framework using AI at the core to do just that, and develop tools to do just that. So there's a lot of good activity in that space.
I just want to make an additional comment. So, I mean, obviously there's great upside and great potential for AI, and it can touch just about any part of any business, everything from the science all the way into your administrative functions and finance functions and whatnot. But one cautionary note, if you're thinking about science is going to eventually go on its path to commercialization, and you're using AI tools, read the fine print. Okay, this is a rapidly changing environment. At FrameWORX, we've developed, in collaboration with our board, a AI policy that really governs the use of the tools. It goes through a rigorous mechanism to evaluate open source tools or tools that we purchase to really understand who owns the data. You could inadvertently be giving away all your IP and not even knowing it when you plug into one of these tools. So there is a cautionary tale that this is rapidly changing. AI companies are out to make money. They're out to be able to leverage information. So just as you protect your passwords, you need to really think about what you do when you engage an AI engine. So that's another thing. The other thing we've done, and invite anybody to participate, we've created an AI working group, and it's really a cross-functional group of scientists that are evaluating tools, applications, and really going through the evaluation of new technologies that are being offered and understand how can we create a sandbox to be able to evaluate a tool and decide if it's something of value that we may want to more firmly integrate into our environment. And that's been a really valuable session to learn use cases, learn best practices, learn how applications in different areas may have some common area. So I'm a big advocate, but also coming from industry and being on the other end and understanding IP and the need to protect IP and the fact that there are a lot of loopholes. I would encourage everybody to tread very carefully as you navigate that space.
Yeah, great advice. Paul?
Just one small thing I'll add to the cogent comments my colleagues have made here, and that is we felt so strongly about AI that one of our 4 initial collaborative multidisciplinary teams is focused on the use of cardiovascular data acquired by wearables in order to develop digital twins. And a key part of that proposal this group of 4 faculty wrote was the ability to focus that on underserved and marginalized populations of potential patients. And that's something that resonates very strongly with us because we think that's very conciliant with our university mission. And so I think there's an opportunity there, not just for Notre Dame, for everybody in that space to reach out and touch those in the larger world who have trouble accessing diagnosis.
And maybe building on that, shameless plug for this data asset that CICB has created through partnerships with Analytics IM, right? So this is a partnership with all the universities, with Lilly, IU Health, and it's an asset in IU Lab, 35,000 patient samples, fully sequenced, matched with phenotypic and clinical data as well. And so really a great data set for AI to go to work on. And so for those that don't know that asset is available to our ecosystem through the collaboration and partnership with all these partners. James?
Yeah, just one quick thing. This is a new IU in Indianapolis is also building a strong kind of a capacity for computational biology. And we particularly, we know there have been a lot of platforms for single cell sequencing, but we really want to in parallel also develop from a more kind of a tool side, kind of align with our quantum characterization, and also to inject the imaging capacity, so you can kind of work that hand in hand. The idea is try to create a new paradigm to try to identify new potential molecules and to try to increase our power to remove redundancy. We have seen new algorithm to kind of try to increase confidence to remove something that you don't want to explore at the very beginning, and just very focus on those targets with a high confidence, so you can explore or screen your target biomarkers much faster. So just let you know, we are developing algorithms, tools, and also some kind of leading paradigm in this domain.
Maybe we'll leave it there. Let's please continue the conversation over some beverages, adult or otherwise. But please thank this esteemed panel for the great discussion.